Hi all. Okay, so it's time for the Michael Battilana from Claranto video. A bit of a false start on this, as you know. When getting ready for it in the shower, I slipped disc and had to postpone it. But I went this Monday and Tuesday. Came back yesterday, and I think it was a very productive interview. In fact, it goes on for about 2 hours. So why am I doing this video? Well, there seems to be a massive backlash against Michael and Claranto for some reason. And I think some of it, there's always some parts, they may be true, some parts exaggerate and so on. But I think overall, it's been unfair. I think it's been, putting it bluntly, outrageous, some of the things that are being said about him. So I decided to do a video, let him give his side, but based on questions from you, the Amiga fans in the community. My belief is that we need to understand Michael, and so there's an introduction. I want you to watch this introduction because it hopefully will show you what kind of man he is, and if you can understand the man, then you can hopefully trust. I think he will be a great steward. I mean, I will say that I was over the moon when I found out he got the rights to the Amiga, because it got it out of the terrible impasse that we were in into the hands of someone who is actually an Amiga fan, and I believe will have the best interests for the Amiga going forward. And as you'll hear in this interview, I think there will be bumps along the way. This legal situation, obviously, but I think over time you'll see that he will deliver on what he says during the interview. Now, you may find that, and I may get criticised, and I may get accused of being a bit Jay Leno here, because he was always seemed to be very friendly and never really went to town on people. But my aim here is not to interrogate Michael. I'm not doing that. And if you want me to do that, no, I'm not interested in that. The idea of this video is for you, the fans, to give me the questions, and there was 45 questions. In fact, it was more than that. There was about 55 questions, actually. 55 questions from the fans, and just let Michael answer them. Yes, I make contributions along the way, but I've tried to. I don't mention my projects. I try to keep out of it. It's not my place. So you need to hear what he has to say, and I hope I've done that well. If you expected me to interrogate him and give him a hard time, no, wrong interview. Turn off now. Goodbye. Now, I would like to thank my Patreons. Obviously, this trip has not been without expense. I didn't want to take any money out of the case, obviously. And of course, with I paid for everything once, and then I slipped. Well, I didn't slip in the shower. I just had a slip disc in the shower. So, of course, all that money was thrown away. And then the second trip, it actually got more expensive. And then I was buying lots of. I will do a video about the bits I bought to do this. But I bought some hardware to improve. Hopefully, it's improved everything here. For the future, I may get a couple of lavalier mics, little, the ones that fit. But that's an expense. Can't justify yet. But the only reason I was able to do this is because of my Patreon backers. Now, I've not mentioned this before because I want people suddenly jumping on as a Patreon. I want the ones that were there at the end of this video. If you stick to the end, you'll see there's a list, and there's all the names. Okay, so I greatly appreciate the money you put in. It's helped my project. It's helped with the keyboards, but it's very much been the reason why I did this. Not the reason I did the video, but the reason I could do this video is because all the expenses have been paid because of my patrons, and things like this do cost a lot of money. So I do want, at the end, watch the end. Hopefully you'll see your name. Now, I know some of you have got little names, but anyway, nicknames, that kind of thing. So look at the end, and thanks very much, and I do really appreciate it. Nice car, Michael. So, do you make all your millions and you bought that, did you?
That's a 12-year-old Kia. Nowadays you have to keep the cars with these new electrical trends and laws, and you get a hybrid plug-in, pure electric or whatever.
Oh, you just keep
Maybe
that car?
20 years, yeah. 10 years from now I change car, but I do less than 10,000 kilometers a year. I don't need a more than this.
Okay, Michael, so do you want to tell us why we're here?
Well, because you had this little problem at the back last time, and I thought I'd come and pick you up with the ambulance.
Yeah.
So I was ready to pick you up at the airport.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, I was in bed for 3 days. So.
You can't do just software day and night, I think. So you need some other things in life. And for me, since 2001, this volunteer work I did with St. John Ambulance helped complement and see different aspects of life and help and learn and so on. So here we are at St. John Ambulance here in Udine, where we teach. We have a class this morning, and it was supposed to be my class, but somebody was replacing me, as you saw. And I used to do emergency service once or twice a week with the local 118 service. This is a trauma center. We have 3 ambulances on active duty all the time in downtown, and a helicopter, 2 small cars like this for the doctor to move quickly from one place to the other, and these are for patients. Now we have 4 cars outside. They do emergency, and these are like spares, or also you can use them for transport, for example. We can have a look inside if you would like. So let's see inside. Well, ambulances wear out quite quickly. After 2 or 3 years, a car that's running day and night will need to be replaced, and you will use it for something else like occasional transport or as a spare. And here you can have a look inside. So this is a car that now we use for transport. Some parts are missing. The monitor is outside, Life Pack 15 here normally. And these cars, as I said, they wear out quite quickly when you do emergency day and night. So after 2 or 3 years, you use them for something else as a spare for transport. These cars are smaller than those you see in movies, especially American movies, because we have narrow roads. Sometimes we have to enter, inside cities or in home entrances which are rural, and it's good to have a small car. Also, we tend to stabilize on the place, unlike the US system, and sometimes transport fast, and we have a trauma center here nearby. And so you don't work that much maybe compared to the US system in the car. And we have a patient here, 1 EMT here, paramedic or doctor, 1 EMT here sometimes, and in case the driver in the front. And that's about it. So this feels like home in many ways. They're all the same. They're similar. The equipment we have to handle trauma, burns, ventilation, suction. The monitor would be here, oxygen supply with tanks in the front and on the side. And this is a standard Class A ambulance here, which even if it is a spare, it's always ready to, it goes through a checklist every day before use, and it can be used as a hot anytime. So, and this was like home probably for 11 years. I was in something like this once or twice a week, usually the morning shift. And you see different aspects of life, rich and poor, rural, city life, people having maybe an accident on the highway and they don't even know where they are. And I think it's, as I always tell our volunteer candidates, it makes you richer in a way. You see life in different, you see life in different aspects. You have to be careful, respectful, because power corrupts, and when you have like a uniform, an orange or yellow uniform, you can easily abuse of this. When you have a siren, you know, it's one of the reasons why some people ask, when can I drive the ambulance? You have to be careful with this. So for me, it's also all the life experiences I learned from the old people who tell you the story of their life here. We have so many war stories. I never would have expected to see so many tattoos also from the camps from World War II. Memories that old ladies told me, and the family said, "Oh, really? Did she tell you this?" And of course, severe things. You never want to see a child, for example, but sometimes it happens. Or when you really can make with a huge teamwork a difference. But usually it's not you. It's the chain where everything works well, and you are replaceable because the system works well, but you try to keep the standard high. And yeah, so I miss this.
Okay, so now here is the uncut video. Now, when I say uncut, basically it broke into about 10 pieces because of file sizes issues. So I've had to tweak and just literally join them all together. I've removed 2 sections. Basically, the 2 sections of me coughing my lungs up. I don't think you wanted to hear that. There was a couple of funny comments from Michael. I may even tack them on the end. Yeah, I've removed those bits, and it's literally non-stop all the way through. There's been no more editing than that. Okay. Now, if you've skipped the introduction part, please rewind, play from the beginning, because I want you to see the videos about Michael. It's no point just jumping into, oh, I'll wait for you to answer my questions. I want to see what he's got to say. No, it's not about that. You need to understand Michael. You need to get to know Michael. Everybody who goes and meets Michael at these shows, no one has come back to me and said they don't like him. Okay? People who've met him, they like him. So please roll back, watch the introduction, and get an understanding of Michael. And I think it will help. Hi all. I know a lot of you have been waiting for this. I think this is a very important interview. As some of you know, that I've been very upset by some of the things being said about clientele, especially Michael, who I've known for many years. And so we decided that I would come out, get your questions, and let him answer the questions as best he can. So let's get started on this.
Well,
Right.
first of all, thank you for coming here, for caring, for your vision. You're a long-time Amiga friend. We've been both here since the 80s.
Yeah.
And I'm intimidated by your equipment. You should see it. There's 2 cameras here, a screen pointing towards us, a big LED, a microphone, which I've never seen even in TV shows. This is very professional.
Yeah, it's I've been, and I'm going to thank my patrons. I will do a special thank you at the end, but my patrons have made this all possible because it helped me buy the equipment. Because all the equipment we're using here, I bought specifically to try and up the game. You can't see that we've also got a secondary recording device down here to try and get everything absolutely nailed. But thanks very much, and as you said, we've known each other for 30 years, something like that. So it upset me when I hear all these things people are saying. Right. So do you want to do this? Do you want to do this overview of Amiga history, or just a very short?
Amiga, yes, because some people have been complaining that Steve's videos are too short. So he wanted to do. He said today he wants to do a 4 or 5 hour version. So what can I say? Personally, I'm a Commodore developer since I wasn't even a teenager. I was probably 10, 11, 12. My father bought a PET Commodore 8032, so an 8-bit system, and I was programming it because it came without software, and what they needed it for at work wasn't there, and so it paid for itself with the software I wrote. And then when I saw the Amiga on the Byte cover story of what was it, August or July 85, I said, this is the machine, the best hardware, the best software from the company which already shaped me. So for
Yeah.
me, it was a Commodore experience. And then we'll see also the different identities, Commodore versus Amiga, the California startup, which is also a different thing. So we had some very good years. We did word processing and paint software for the Amiga. This was actually my first Amiga keyboard, the Amiga 1000. And we were allowed to grow with this, grow and prosper. Our software was bundled with every Amiga sold with several Amiga companies. So in Canada, we were strong in educational software also. And then personal paint also with the bundles. We did some system software. So we really saw some very good years, growth, margin for quality and growth, and all of that collapsed then in the 90s after the dissolution, and which was a chain reaction, brought down a lot of distributors and so on. So everything which I see now is for me also a bit relative, because I've seen some very good years which even now I'm not seeing. So in terms of numbers, we had distributors who were doing millions of dollars for advertising per year. We had a circulation of magazines, Amiga Formats, You Amiga, the German Amiga magazine, 6 digit, so more than 100,000 copies each month. It was a different world.
Yeah, totally different.
And so now for me, since about 97, it's more of a hobby, passion.
Yes, and me.
So it's both preservation, but don't be afraid. It's not only about preservation, it's also about maintaining order and clarity and respect and beauty. Beauty is important for me. Amiga always was about beauty, and that's what makes me suffer now to have this tainted. So also to make possible projects with stability and to be able to work and prosper as a community. So as an ecosystem of competencies and with some reassurances that what you do, you can go on and do and be respected. So without the grabbing and the lawsuits and all these things. Which are quite recent, by the way. We didn't have lawsuits nowadays. The lawsuits came a bit more than 10 years ago after Amiga Inc. subcontracted some work, and there were problems with that. So we inherited those now. And
so I've mentioned to you that after the Gateway thing, things went wrong for me. I left the Amiga community for personal reasons, and I was away for about 10 years, so I missed the red and the blue thing. And I know there was some things happened at that time. But do you think that's had anything to do with now? Do you think it's...
Well, I remember it as a split in the community. A split is not so good because we don't have that many resources.
No, it's true.
Red, Blue was, well, there was the Matrix movies, of course, in those years, but there was some tension already then. There was some entities who wanted to take over or do something some didn't want and so on, but it wasn't touching us. We actually were working with all of them. I like Team Morphos setting an example of what you can do with your own resources without legal problems. As a team, self-sustaining, just like our projects, as long as the Amiga ones, as long as they are barely self-sustaining. Of course, we put our extra hours in, which we don't count, but that's how you can move forward and create some technically excellent software without all the ugliness around it.
I think the Morphos, as you said, I think the Morphos thing is a fantastic example.
Morphos team has showed us this over the years, in the long term. That's
really
the long term
how the whole thing should have been done.
It could have been, I don't know, but
Errors
is another nice example, a community effort going slowly. Again, if we could combine or,
would be nice, wouldn't it?
But talking and respect and agreement, clarifying situations, these are all necessary steps to bring back something.
Talking. I think that's exactly the reason why.
That's why this is going to be 5 hours, right?
It's gonna, And if I keep looking at the top, I'm just checking to make sure the thing's still recording, the levels are okay. So forgive me on that. So I suppose one small one. There was a discussion about the Gateway, very briefly. I mean, myself, Mick Tinker, and Paul went to. We'll do this story another day. We went to Gateway. We didn't come away quite as successful, but Michael, you had a much more successful trip.
Well,
and say to me, I think you saved the OS from disappearing. That's my personal opinion.
As a developer, every new possible owner for me was also a source of hope. oh, at least we have clarity, we can do personal paint aid with true color layers and whatever on this platform. And instead, this platform never came. They just told us, we call this classic and don't work on classic anymore because it's over. We were not really so sure, but
Yeah.
so Gateway, yes, Gateway had important reasons to acquire the IP, especially for the Commodore Amiga patents, which now are expired. Now we have other assets, trademarks and copyrights. But those were the days of the patent wars, and HP and other companies had these patents about the parallel port and other things. And by purchasing these assets, Gateway got some a portfolio of patents which they could use in some bargaining. So yes, well, we did with Amiga International, Gateway's Amiga companies, Amiga Inc. and Amiga International. We kept on doing system software and bundles, and we still were working. Also with what was left of Commodore UK after David Pleasance, with Jonathan Anderson and other people.
So it was an interesting time. As I said, after that section, and in fact, just a little plug for David Pleasance's book. There's some bits about it in there. Right, so let's get on with the questions then. So we had lots of questions, so we do have to work our way through these. I've not retyped these from people. Literally, I've cut and paste their questions, so if I seem a bit I'm stumbling on it, you'll understand. But we had some light-hearted ones. We had an interesting few, and then we had the serious ones. So let's go for the light-hearted ones. And I've got no names on these. I've just literally taken the questions. Hopefully, you'll recognise it's your question.
I remember some names. He told me. John, who has a problem with Snowman Maker, I know who you are.
Okay. Right. So, which beer do you? This one. Which beer do you prefer? As Poster was promised to buy him more than one. The Amiga 34 in Germany.
Indeed, we got. I was telling you in the car. In difficult times, you also see who your friends are.
Yeah.
And you are a friend. I consider you a friend. I consider also some people friends who now were put in difficult situations. But we had a lot of beer offers. And I'm more a red wine person, but I'll tell you the only lengthy story now, otherwise I will be
we have to.
But so my grandparents are from Germany, so that's my grandmother, and we are at home here, so you have some photographs here. These are flowers from the garden, these are from another grandparent who self-made these. So my German grandparents, of course, beer was something special, hospitality and joy and everything. And I was a teenager coming after 6 or 7 hours by train, and my grandfather would tell my grandmother, take some beer. And I would say, like, with a strange face, something that my grandmother would understand, and say, vielleicht will der Bub ein Kaba, maybe he wants a chocolate milk. Because I didn't really drink or like beer yet. And I would say maybe, yes, or no. My grandfather would say, beer. Because for him, when nephew arrives, beer. And I would say, I'm not thirsty. You don't drink beer because you're thirsty. So I gave up. And for me, beer is the family thing that I used to have with my grandparents, grandfather, maybe even if it wasn't my type of thing. But I will drink as a social thing. I will drink any beer. I like the local. I like the diversity, which is an Amiga, Commodore Amiga topic. No, diversity. You learn new things. It develops. I always ask the local beer. And so sometimes I challenge people. So do I, in this global world, what is the local beer sometimes? They say, we don't have a local beer. But so the answer is the local beer, please.
Okay. Yes. You can see this is going to take a while.
Well, you told me 5 minutes.
Yeah, you had to use my cough. As some of you know, I first interview went a bit pear-shaped. But this one's gone because I've got a bad chest. Next, we're still on light-hearted ones. Are you going to Las Vegas in August at Comm Vex?
Speaking of splits, that's another. To me, it was sad. I used to go to Rob Bernardo's events, the Comm Vex. I'm a member of the Clark County, so the Clark County is the center of Las Vegas, the Clark County Commodore Computer Club, the 5 Cs. And they used to co-organize this event. And then, like 3 or 4 years ago, they split. So there's Comm Vex, still organized by Rob, which is about the same time as DEF CON and the other more black hat event they have before, which is not ideal because the whole of town has prices going up. It's difficult to find hotels, Airbnb, flights are more expensive. And then there's 1 or 2 weeks after that, you have the Commodore Retro Expo, which is August 23, 25. So the Comm Vex is August 10, 11. I tried to make it one of the two. I would really love if they could join forces, or at least be on the same dates.
Yeah.
But splitting that in the same town, it makes me sad.
Yeah.
I cannot do both, but I feel like I choose. Like you ask a child who you love more.
Yeah, I know.
I told both sides. So what I'm telling you now, I'm telling both. Yes, I think I will be at Commodore Retro Expo, August 23, 24, 25. Yes.
Okay. This is just a silly one, but someone sent me an email, but didn't want to ask me a question because I had a funny avatar. I have no idea what that is. So that's.
You have a default?
Yeah, I have one of my avatars, and I've had it for ages because I'm into virtual reality, and I want it with I think it's with the glasses on, or it might be the one that I had a tiger face when I was on holiday with my kids, and my kids wanted to get their face painted, but they wouldn't do it if I didn't.
I remember that.
Yeah, so I had the tiger face, and I used to use that. Yeah,
you had that for many years.
But no, it was funny. I'm not leaving the question due to my avatar. Anyway, so the next one is. Will Amiga.com finally be for Amiga fans instead of trying to pawn off a snowman screensaver?
Johnny from Toronto. you have snow. You know what snow is. You have like -20, -30, which I have only in the fridge. And you don't like Snowman Maker. No, but this is... it's one beer I offer you. But... so... There's several entities here. Now we're getting into the core.
Yeah.
It's a good way to touch the topics. So some questions say, so now that Cloanto bought this, first of all, we wanted to make a proper announcement. Cloanto didn't buy the remaining assets of Amiga Inc. Amiga CA Acquisition Corp did. Yep. The companies are separate. Eventually they will both contribute the assets into a non-profit. That was always my idea. I announced it already, I think, at the Computer History Museum in Mountain View in 2015. We spoke about open source, non-profit, and these things. However, we also inherited this difficult legal situation, the full burden of it now, and this needs to be resolved. Otherwise, you don't really merge and maybe give up some pre-existing rights, and you want to be careful about that. So there's different entities still. Cloanto, the Commodore Amiga developer since the 80s, probably one of the longest continuous operating Amiga-related businesses. Then the new entity, the acquisition entity. So Cloanto already had the copyrights, the rights for the emulation support, which we have been doing since 97. We did emulation, classic support, preservation, working with institutions, also all of that we have been doing long before late 90s, early 2000s already. All of these entities, they respect, this is important for me, and so I am no lawyer, we don't hire lawyers, we don't have lawyer owners in our company, we're all software developers, we hire software developers, we always did. So what I say is personal, but it's important to stress that Cloanto, the acquisition entity, and we respect the settlement agreement between the Amiga companies and Hyperion, for example. So we respect the settlement agreement that was in place, and we expect everyone else to respect it as well. So no Amiga entity ever challenged, for example, OS4. So last week somebody wrote us, because now we get more or less official mail requests because there's an official reference which is transpiring. So the announcement will come. I wanted to wait to put something on Amiga.com for this interview. I didn't want to bypass your questions, no? And I referred them, it was some new hardware platform for OS4, and I said, can you maybe do the boot? And I said, no, you must work with our partner Hyperion. They are the ones who do OS4. So for me, I would love to keep doing this, but we need to clarify something else. Yeah. So we respect the settlement agreement, and there's different entities, so Cloanto and acquisition entity, and I hope there will be a non-profit, a foundation or something like that, that will encourage more people to contribute in code or however else we can do.
We're going to cover this quite a lot.
Yeah. So Amiga.com, again, is in common ownership, but it's not yet merged into the rest. However, I'm allowed to begin to use it for Amiga things now.
Good.
So whatever, I mean, we could do like something else, a porn site.
Yeah, I was about to say people are worried it's going to end up as a porn site.
If the court case ends badly, you never know in life. I mean, there's always a degree of unpredictability. I know as a software developer, I cannot really compete against a lawyer specializing in IP.
Yeah.
So I started this knowing that it would be a challenge, or whoever started this also is a debate. I just stood up saying, you promised for many years to explain me some things, you never did, please stop this, and then it escalated, because sometimes when you have lawyers at play, they escalate.
I think sometimes the chasing after IP or patents.
Chasing after I don't chase her.
No, I mean, some companies, you know.
Chasing after, also the grabs.
Yeah.
This is not
I'm
the
not
Wild
saying
West.
that's what's happening here, I'm just saying.
It happened. There was a Wild West of grabs in recent years where people thought, oh, maybe they're not renewing the trademark. And you saw companies with no entitlement.
I think there's questions on this.
We'll see that. Yeah. So it's true. After the expiration of the US mark, Cloanto 2 filed an intent to use application, which is different from intent to use is a more softer, more respectful thing done by a company who also signed the exhibit of the settlement agreement. So if we were to get the trademark, it wouldn't be a threat to other companies, but it would be usable by those companies. Okay. So if it's done in the proper way, it's one thing, but those grabs, they need to be stopped.
I think we can come back to this subject. Okay, so here's another light-hearted one. That one went quite a long way. That one. So it's just literally.
And I didn't answer the question. Huh? I haven't said if Snowman Maker will be the main thing.
You did mention the Snowman, so it's okay. The question was just literally, hi Michael, thanks for supporting the Amiga platform when very few were. And I have to back that up because even I remember, when I left and it literally could have stagnated and died on the spot. And if it hadn't been for Amiga Forever, at least keeping the main OS to allow people to build it, you wouldn't have had AmiKit. If you look at AmiKit based on Amiga, I think it's fantastic.
And many others. It's kept generations united.
Yes.
Lots of people tell us.
And new kids coming in, new people coming in because they think it's the coolest thing ever.
That's one of the many.
So I don't think we would have been there if you hadn't saved it. And I thank you for that. I truly mean that. I really do. Right. So the last one of the light-hearted ones. How does it feel when specific parties and many people on various forums try to paint you as the only bad guy for simply defending yourself in court? I don't think that's a light-hearted one, actually.
Well, that's two statements, which may or may not be true. Yes, I see myself as defending a certain position, which I think is the one of truth and respect for rules. And at some point, it's like when you're a witness in a car accident. Yeah. You have to say what you saw, what you didn't see, even if it's inconvenient. So you have to stand up for what you believe is right. Some people, again, like you see friends, you see people who stood up. I told some people, thank you for standing up. And so again, it's difficult against lawyers who make public statements. Maybe you interview somebody and he's a lawyer, he knows what to say because everything he says is in a certain angle and has been for the last 10 years. I can make mistakes. So for me as a software developer, it's even more difficult to speak. But thank you for, I see half of the question not as ugly, but, and I used to say, like Dave Haney said, the Amiga people make the application look like PC users.
Yeah, the Amiga people make them look.
So, and again, it takes a thick skin, some people at Apple say, to do this in some context. I don't like the word, thick skin, yes. As you go through ups and downs, and also some people, they envy you because you had success. I had this in the 80s, as I say. So, some developers made it, some didn't. But it's not about thick skin, because thick skin to me means also ignoring. You have to train and deal with situations, with difficult situations. And this I see with gratitude in a way, also to be able to learn. And
I think we could also say, maybe thick skin's the wrong word, maybe life experiences make you less upset about certain things because, as I said, I've been through some things, and so I have a bit more of a
I
relaxed attitude.
For one, I have hope.
Yes,
because now
yeah.
I see a potential for peace like we never had in the last 10 years,
yeah.
and for clarity.
Yes, absolutely.
And I have the ability, thanks to other software work, and you wanted me also to explain this part, that, for example, defending ourselves and the acquisition is not done with Amiga Forever money. It would be impossible. My wife is an accountant, you know, and when she saw, like some developers who work with us, we do B2B.
But I thought you was a multi-millionaire based on all of that.
Based on what?
But based on all the sales of the Amiga Forever packages and the money you've been taking from Amiga users, I thought you'd made millions.
Yes. And you made millions with those cases.
Yeah.
Right? No, look. This is always, the project is always, I think that we put in our own time and money and resources from other projects. If we counted that, no, not a single cent of Amiga Forever, for example, went into either legal or acquisition. That was done with other software work, for which I'm grateful that only in the last few years we could do it. But you know, like 10 years ago, in more difficult times, when we had to divert resources from B2B to Amiga, like working on software for some new version of Amiga Forever, we had an internal debate in difficult times. Why are we taking away resources and time? And for me, pushing this forward, having to justify it, was not easy. Now, the new challenge is, of course, this legal situation.
Yeah. Okay. So this next group, I've called this the antagonistic section. Actually, there's about four questions here. It came from the same guy. Now, when I first asked for these questions, a lot of people were posting the questions on the thread of the video, and I said, if you actually want the question to be, you have to email it to me. Then basically I've got your email I can reply to you, not for any nasty reason or anything like that, but so that I could see it was legit and it wasn't an anonymous thing. And, you know, because some of it was just silly. I will say that probably 80% of people have been very positive and very, very nice. 20%, yeah, okay, they're very upset. But overall, passions run high with Amiga, and it's always been the same. But this one gentleman kindly sent me some questions, which is quite funny. So the first one was, well, who do you think you are? And
I learned some new English. Phrasal verbs.
I had to explain what that meant. But it didn't matter what he said. The response was going to be, is that the best you've got? Which made me laugh. I just thought, now...
I don't know. Who are you, Greg?
Yeah, exactly.
No, but I love the difficult questions. Actually.
Yeah.
So I would love, if we do this again, and we should do this again, I would love Greg to be with us.
Yeah.
Or we do a meeting with
Skype.
Greg. I visit Greg. I like personal meetings, you know. Yeah, Skype is fine. Also, you have seen I avoided the forums, but I visit more events than many others. I think, like, I'll also be at the Amiga. I was at the Irish event. I was in the Bristol event. I'm going to the Amiga 34, of course.
Yeah. Swindon, Swag.
Swag is at the same time as Pixel.
Yeah, but you went to the last one.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I'll be at Pixel Heaven in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And
I will say also, everyone who sends in messages, if you've met Mike, right, people really like him. So if you meet him, now the one thing I will say about this gentleman here is, I know people are passionate, and I totally get it. But usually when you meet these people and you sit down and you talk with them, and actually they see you for who you are. This is one of the reasons for this video, and understand that Michael's a human being, I'm a human being. You know, you might not like us, or you might. People who meet us, I usually get on very well. And Mike normally draws a crowd. It's a bit frustrating, he gets a better crowd than I do. But so sometimes things aren't always what you see with just sound bites. So
sound bites, and also like in the late 80s with Amiga came email from me. Yeah. I noticed the distance, you don't see the reaction.
Yes, no, that's true. Yeah.
And then we have a second phenomenon now, the echo chambers, which amplify the negative in social. Also discussion forums and so on. They are driven by some interests.
They are.
And also they amplify some negativity. Yeah. So I prefer reality.
And that's the whole point.
And I love debate. So if Greg wants to join us.
Yeah, Skype in, Greg, or come and see us.
No, exactly. Come at one of the events, or
come see us.
Let's do a session like this.
You won't regret it. And of course, the next question.
Yeah, I said what I am, by the way, to answer. I mean, Amiga developer, Commodore, a bit developer before that. Yes. How I fell in love with Amiga. I love beauty and sadness now because of the current difficult situation. But I have hope, and that's the essence of who I am. Maybe I still have hope.
So do I. My wife keeps telling me I should move on, but anyway.
My wife too. She said you should do websites or whatever.
Yeah.
Luckily, she doesn't know about many of the ugly things.
No, nor does my wife. So this one was even more surprising. So what do your parents think of this? Now I noticed you put some answers. Do you want to answer that?
Well,
or do you want to ignore it?
you know, when I started, I used to cover under my door so they wouldn't see that there was lights coming out. Because I could stop typing when I heard steps. So already at night, even as a teenager, and even when I was studying computer science, which I later dropped. So of course it's a big concern for parents if in middle school you spend time in front of a computer, and it was something new back then, but I was working for my father. And in middle school you already have, I didn't have the Amiga yet. The Amiga came in the first year in the university. I was writing for my exam projects the C code on the Amiga and converting it to Pascal, then to put on a Unix machine.
Wow. Yeah.
We had a time, not a time sharing, a multi-user Unix machine.
Yeah.
So they were concerned because it was a new world, and was I wasting my time? By the way, I never even was playing games. I was creating software, I was developing. But for them, for people who don't know about computers, they are obviously concerned. I remember the last time I was with my parents skiing, I was in the ski lift with my mother, and I really would have wanted to be in front of an Amiga at home. And I was telling this to her. It was probably 1986 or 87, so I was. And I was telling her, like now, all the people I know, they are in front of their computer finishing some exciting project.
Yeah.
And I would like to do the same and finish something I have in mind. I was dreaming about an Amiga requesters at night. I remember once I had fever and I was dreaming some user interface things. So that was how I was living in those years. And she understood. And that was the last time they forced me to go on. Which is sad to say, because obviously for a parent it's beautiful to go with your children, but they understood that for me in that time it was important to be into. So I think my parents at some point, initially they were concerned if it was a serious question, and now they would be okay. Just now, as a parent, I do have a similar concern. We both have a small child. How much screen time, any at all or none at all? So these were the concerns of my parents. These things in life, they can happen to anyone, whether it's a car accident, whether it's a lawyer saying I sue you because whatever. You have patent and other legal trolls all around you, and you have to maybe do the best you can do based on what you believe in.
Just don't answer the next one, okay? But question 3 was, where do you get off?
I didn't.
That's basically a
can I
repeated
ask
person. Who do you think you are?
Can I ask the same to the person?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Where do you get off?
So right then. Okay. So next one's the last one was: did you ever understand what Amiga Inc. tried to do in the past 20 years? If yes, what did they do?
Well, as I see it, so Amiga Inc., the company after Gateway, you can divide that in 2 10-year periods, roughly. In the first 10 years, they had money. They didn't have a clear vision. They tried different things. There were strange years when PowerPC first was interesting, then it was fading. Retro wasn't yet a word. For me, Amiga always was the future. It wasn't really retro. Even now, for me, it's exciting. So, different partnership opportunities came and went, and then this subcontracting the port to port 3.1 from 68K to PowerPC turned ugly. The first lawsuits. And then the money suddenly ended in 2009. Dr. Khoury died, leading to a settlement. And this settlement and the inability to get more funds and the lack of interest by the original investors, since the main one died, in doing more Amiga things, created a more static Amiga Inc. Static but not dead, because thanks to the settlement and other agreements, it had licensees. So when you buy an Amiga 1 from Aeon, you actually were buying something and a license from Amiga Inc. through Hyperion. Every Amiga 1, every OS4 is the result of something that goes to the benefit of Amiga Inc. So you cannot say it was dormant, like some people say. Because through contracts, others were still an extension of Amiga Inc. Now it's Acquisition Corp. And it's important, it's one of the missions of the company, which will be also done through advertising soon. You will see in Amiga Future and other Pixel magazine and other magazines, you will see the entity explaining who it is, what it hopes to do. Some things it cannot do directly, but it can express hopes. Why not? I can today, I said, speaking personally, express some hope. So I see 2 10-year periods roughly. But the last 10-year period ended for me on February 1st, when we acquired the assets. Now, some people may or may not, because they have their own interest, not even recognize this changing hands. We have to demonstrate that it was an honest transaction, showing the dates in which the meetings were held and all these things. Probably this will be dragged in the court case, but we have all this evidence. We have contracts being signed, the phone calls, and all these things to show that it was an honest transaction, which plans dating back from even when Dr. Khoury was alive. I was talking to him about open source when he was on the board of Nokia, and their OS Symbian went partially open source. No, so acquisition, non-profit foundation, and all these things, they were in our thoughts before these lawsuits, the recent ones.
Okay, so now we're going to come on to the serious questions, although to be fair, the other ones actually were good, started off with good discussion points.
Because they were extremes, light and heavy. And
absolutely right, So, first question, what's your thoughts on the new clones coming out? For example, Amy ITX, Amiga, and Paul's A4000 board. I'm not sure Paul's surname, but people out there probably know that.
I think that's a good way to potentially start a collaboration with a new entity, because, for example, hardware schematics, and there have been leaks also from private backups and archives from the former Commodore files. They help create new developments, and they do not conflict, as far as I know, with some claims in the court case by other parties. So I think if we wanted to show that we are serious about open sourcing, or in general opening and stimulating development, I think open sourcing schematics, PAL, GAL code, and these things, I'm not talking 3.1 or other things, just schematics, PAL, GAL code. It would help development, but also remove the legal ambiguity, the moral ambiguity that many have, because they know, I was approached by somebody at Amiga 32, and he told me, well, we did this, but we were using stolen files. This is terrible. It means we have to restore beauty. So I think one of the first steps we can do, without entering into the legal debate of the court case, this is not touched. The schematics are not part of that. So hardware is not part of that. I think that will be the first step. So, for example, now we have the official Amiga Inc. archives. We have them. There's backups. There's CATS development. There's a lot of projects and everything. That's more than, for example, Hyperion was ever given to develop OS4. But we need more. We know there's more copies and tapes, and we are entitled to have them, to preserve them. We already work with preservation institutions. So while not everything can be free and available for all, because there's also private data in it. For example, there are files with passwords, and people keep reusing their passwords. So, for example, you don't want to disclose all passwords by all Commodore engineers, right? So some things, there's private mails, there's files, UUCP files that were grabbed here and there just because they were fun. So, but for preservation, sometimes preservation will prevail, I think. I'm inviting whoever has copies to contribute them. Maybe they're the same of what we already have from the Sun, from the VAX machines, from other repositories. Maybe not, and we can see the difference, the evolution. Maybe we can reconstruct in a better way how the company worked, and get more schematics and release them in an official way, not just in a way that makes people feel bad about using shady.
Because there seems to be, we were talking about this before, but there seems to be more hardware development than actually software development. So, and that's really positive. But to make it easier for people, if there's an official way now they can actually talk to the owners of the Amiga company now, then I think that's going to help no end. I think that's very important.
Hardware, I started almost envying hardware developers when the Commodore companies collapsed and they left a void that hardware developers could fill.
Yeah.
For us, software developers, collapse in sales of new Amigas, official Amigas, meant a reduction in sales of software. That was the problem.
No, that's right.
So for me, it was really a collapse.
Yeah.
Not just the quarterly revenues from Commodore, the royalties and everything because of our software bundles collapsed, but also our distributors collapsed. So I could have bought a house then and not only 2 years ago.
No. But anyway, so that's definitely this kind of leads. I was about to say that's good for the future anyway. But so the next question is, where do you see the Amiga in 5, 10, 25 years time?
We forgot one question.
We have forgot. Oh, my apologies. Oh, we have. You sound professional, okay. So number 2, does Clienter support? This is a good question. Does Clienter support fair use when it comes to Amiga medium and material?
Just to show you like the debate, I don't think it's a good question.
Oh, okay.
Fair use is obvious. You shouldn't even ask it. It's in the law. You don't have as a company to support. It's like saying, do you believe in respecting the law? Fair use is part of the law.
Yeah.
But I believe in going an extra step. I believe, like when we use things in Amiga Forever, I believe, even when it's at public domain, I believe in asking. Asking is showing respect.
Yes.
And it's communicating. So yes, fair use and the law in general and the settlement agreement and everything is supported by Clienter and by me personally. But I also like asking. Yeah. Like if I do an interview, copyright is. I am the speaker. I own no rights over what I say. Strangely, you own the rights over the movie. But I still ask you. You ask me permission. I ask you permission, and these things. So, and it's not limited to Amiga. It's all works in general. So
I think that but at least now that, because I've said in the past, it was like, well, I'd like to have talked to maybe the Amiga owners in the past, but I didn't know who to speak to. And now this is one of the great things that's coming out of this. We actually do have a point where we can go to and discuss what we like to do.
I try to keep my Amiga inbox at 0. I will try to keep it as a mission. I failed with Clienter because I have internal email, external email. I do some support also. I like to be in touch with the reality. But Mike@amiga.com, I try to keep at 0 once a week. So I try to respond to everything.
Okay, so let's go to the next one then. So I'm going to have to turn this over.
Yeah.
So the question was again, where do you see the Amiga in 5, 10, 25 years time? Which is kind of so how do you think it's going to? What would you like to see, I suppose?
I want to have beauty restored, like a little bonsai. We are not Windows, we are not Apple, we are not Linux. And this is in a good way. We represent diversity. Diversity not just relative to this, but also diversity within our community. The company who doesn't even know what logo to use. The company who doesn't know, is it Commodore Amiga? Is it Amiga, as I said, the original team? Things turned ugly other times, but we can all be friends. So, there have been more than one deathbed vigil and so on when Commodore bought it, and now we bought it at the end. And you respect some changeovers, and you should try to present history and also allow for a future, but present history taking into account both aspects. There was a California team, there was a great work done at Commodore, there was a great community, there was developers, there are developers, and I would like it to be more transparent, more respectful, more clarity. So you mentioned hardware developers. Sometimes it's often a matter of saying, okay, you can use these names, you shouldn't use these names without a license, and you can say this in 2 lines, and you bring clarity. Or you have one reseller who's worrying about the other, who feels the need to grab some trademarks because otherwise, no, these things need to be sorted out just to restore some of the order, peace, respect, and beauty. This is for me important.
Yeah, when everyone knows the rules. I mean, this is almost like branding guidelines. If you want to use something, you have to make sure you put this registered trademark, and so we know these rules. But I will say on that question, just because it was. What would you like to see? How would you like to see the Amiga develop over the next 10? Would you like to? Because I have my own personal vision, but of course.
Well, you have to develop. I think first step, you have to restore the ability to do with confidence what you already do now.
Yeah.
So it's not just preservation, which we do. We have done maybe too well because people associate us.
Yeah.
They associate us now with with fear. Oh, they will only do old things. But remember, we were developers before. We were innovation. We wrote the first PowerPC commercial code. Probably we innovated in many ways. With new software packaging formats, with code. There's a lot of code in Amiga Forever that some people like to say, oh, you're just using some GPL.
Yeah, I know, I saw that.
They haven't used it. So, in one dimension, in a human legal, I want to see peace, reconciliation, clarity. So the new Amiga entity will have no grudges. So these things which maybe you were put in because you were led to believe some things or whatever, you thought you had to do this. No, reconciliation means going over some things.
Yes.
And then I think more will flourish. But we need to cover preservation and education. I think that some of the old things we have, they're good for that.
Yeah.
Then we need to allow for both classic and new generation, whether you like the name or not, but these are concepts that one means 68K, one means PowerPC or whatever.
Yeah.
And confidence needs to be restored in the ability of being able to do this. Of course, the hardware landscape is always changing. There was Alpha, there's RISC, ARM, there's RISC-V now. You always have many distractions which are possible, and only one is the right one, like getting married. Can you come back? Can you do them all? Is it the right thing to dilute and do everything or not? Can you be cross-platform? Maybe yes, maybe not. What is Amiga? Do you need the custom chips? Does it like to exercise excellence with demo scene production? Isn't it good to have some reference hardware with custom chips? There can be a debate about this. No?
We haven't got time for that debate because that's a massive debate. But that's something I think in the future that we'll need to discuss. But I think I agree with you that I think we need to resolve the problems, and if we can get everything nice and on a level ground, so we can then start working for the future, and then lots of things. I think things will happen.
And it takes time. So I have to ask and invite patience. It's not just you had 20 years of patience.
Yeah.
And things flourished in spite of some problems, or maybe also because of some problems. The court case needs to be resolved. Some of the questions here cannot be answered without seeing what the interpretation, which we always wanted to know of some wording in the settlement agreement, what the intention and the wording and the law says. So that only a court can say. So.
Well, once we get past that, I think
yes.
I've discussed. In my opinion, I'll say this for everybody. I would love to see, the Amiga's never going to be Linux, or Mac OS, or anything like that. But we can have this nice little, we call it cottage industry, and there's already lots of people that they're making enough money from just doing the hardware and so on for a hobby. I mean, I'm not going to talk about a case, but the case, yes, it's been good. But if we can build this and so that people are confident that they know the rules, they can follow the rules, we can build something nice. And I think it would be nice that people could maybe get back to people making a living from this, which I think would be I would consider that a success. But that's what I would see for the future. Okay. So the next one is what are your plans for the Amiga?
Well, we
kind of said that.
I grouped them. You're reading now from my list because I grouped some related ones.
Okay,
I think we answered that. So
on that point, let me just say something. I think it's quite important that I gave Michael the list of the questions in advance, so he was prepared. So if anyone thinks, Michael's done these questions, no, it's not.
I slept 4 hours tonight to go through this.
Yeah, so it's very important to be honest that I built the questions and I gave them to Michael so he could prepare his answers, and he's given pretty good answers. So there was no surprises. You may call me the Jay Leno here, but there's no surprises here. So it's really getting this information out to you. So. Anyway.
But it didn't go through legal or anything.
Yeah.
So you will bring me oranges. So the essence of this is I would like to diffuse the toxic situation we have now and restore some beauty and order and respect and clarity before the technical side. You cannot, it's like announcing a product before you do the licensing. Some have done it. It's ugly.
Yeah.
So you need to restore that.
Okay. The next question. Any thoughts about expanding Amiga Forever to include Mac OS 8 emulation, Mac PowerPC emulation, and Atari ST emulation?
We need to maintain some focus, I think. So initially, when we did the big rewrite of Amiga Forever around 2007, 2008, and also with Trevor's help, as you probably know, he gave us a loan, we paid it back, but it allowed us to rest for 1 or 2 years without a new release and rewrite the whole player framework. The idea was that we would do several platforms, and the framework actually is very modular in that it supports different emulation engines, it supports an abstraction layer with different platforms. So emulation engines, platform, and then player, so several layers. And we work in practice, not in academia. It works. We showed as a product that it works. But we thought we could do Spectrum, DOS, potentially EST and others. However, seeing that the resources are limited and we need to keep focus, I noticed that 10 years later, Commodore Amiga, 8-bit and Amiga kept me already very busy. So yes, technically the framework has shown that it can work. We already work with 5 emulators. So as plugins and engines, we use 5 different technologies, and then there's more than 500,000 lines of our code added around them. And we also give back to the open source projects. But so yes, in theory it's possible, but I learned not to do too many things.
Don't hold your breath.
Yeah,
that's fair enough. Okay,
but some others are doing. I mean, Atari ST, I see some are using WinUAE already, but that's unrelated to our work.
There's a lot of work on the Vampire for doing that as well. Okay, so next question. Given the recent and not so recent court legal actions, is there any new development regarding the discourse of possible futures, specifically open source?
Well, I think we covered that in the introduction. So what we started discussing in 2015, or what is now at Quanto.org, luckily I said those things before the challenges that came up in 2017. No? Yeah. So and I should say, in the acquisition agreement, we explicitly carved out, which was not easy, the possibility to set up a foundation, a non-profit, because you may be scared. You sell me something, I have to keep paying you maybe for a while, but I do a non-profit. So, but we were able to do this because for me it's important. So, and there can be no suspicion that we're doing it for some reason related to the court case, because it was announced already before. I always was speaking about this. I can tell you who gave me some ideas and so on already 5 years ago or more. So yes, foundation, non-profit, education, open source, some but not all. We have to see what type of license, how it would be beautiful if we could merge some assets, maybe some Eros developments, also giving them an extra motivation. And again, it could flow back in OS4, just like and done by our partner. No, like they did. But what if more people could contribute to 3.1? Now you already have 3.14, which was, apart from the fact that it was a rebuild, and I'm skipping to maybe knowing that there will be questions about that, a rebuild rather than patches, because much of it was already done before. Many of the patches were from previous developments owned by the Commodore Amiga companies, Amiga International. But there was the generous contribution of Olaf, Thor, and others, who I believe worked little or no compensation. No, and this is an example of how it could be done in a proper framework. But open source too is expensive. You need guidance. Of course, often there's a trade-off. They say, what about the projects where you have champions who 20% who do 80% of the work? Are they good or bad? But sometimes they are the winning projects. So yes, open source. I am a believer in that. I don't think it will like hurt sales in a greedy way. I think we can do more.
Not
We
at
can
all.
do more. The whole
No,
community can do more.
Linux is a fantastic example of this. You know, because it's had money to help develop it and push it.
Yeah, but Linux has also big companies, IBM.
Yeah, that's my point. There's
the
lots of money.
Apache
Yeah.
and other projects are also funded by very.
But
large.
they get what they want out of it, and everyone else gets reaps the benefits.
Linux. I had discussions with Richard Stallman. You might open a can of worms. There's some. That's why I respectfully say GNU Linux.
Yeah.
So there's Unix, of which Linux in a way is a clone. Right? So then there's the work done by the GNU people. Of course, yeah. So but it's good to know. You have to know the history and all these pieces. And
I mean, just saying open source. Oh, let's do it open source is actually not as simple necessarily, but it's definitely something to. Well, everyone knows I'm an AWS fan, but I'm. Okay, so next question. What's the possibility of a version of Workbench ROM or stroke ROM that would work out of the box with the Vampire range accelerators, or even just the V4 standalone? Because a lot of people are...
Well, here we enter the topic of the legal challenges. Yeah. Maybe I am too respectful of. Let's wait and see until the court decides.
Yeah.
Because some people just jumped and released some things. I would not have done this. I think it was wrong.
Yeah.
Because it was in the middle of the court case. So technically, of course, the answer is yes. If it's about 68 or 60 code, we already in our Amiga OS, the 3X ROMs, which have been doing for more than 10 years now, we have patches in place to fix the 68 or 60 code. And then there's boot and other aspects that need to be taken care of. But of course, technically, we have shown as an Amiga community that it can do everything.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah.
But technically, not legally.
No.
I don't want to complicate the case. No. I don't. So even if it could be doable, I don't want to complicate the case. Yeah. I am patient. I try to be.
Yeah, I've been a fan by almost for 10 years, so and I'm still patient.
There was a merge of. They both mentioned the Vampire.
Yeah.
So.
It says Vampire support you blindly. Are they licensing your wrong copy? Oh yeah, that kind of covers it. Should Cliento secure the necessary rights? Would the company let independent developers access the source code or contribute without having to sign an NDA or contracts of sorts? And will we be allowed to freely share the patches and or derivative work?
It's a very speculative question. So first, it wouldn't be Cliento. The new entity is an entity in which Cliento would contribute, even its own, the copyright it owns. But I would like it to be a fresh entity. Cliento will do, in an ideal case, its own B2B software like it already does. And the new entity will do this. Sometimes, we have seen ugly contracts. Like you sign something which says NDA, and then you find out in the small print that you've been assigning some of your old and future work. It's something that says mutual non-disclosure. It's not customary, and as a developer maybe doesn't know what he's doing when he sees non-disclosure. So I think what Lawrence, one of our lawyers, has taught me is that an agreement has to be fair and respectful. Sometimes I thought, but is he working for the other side or something? But you have to really have a balance, and in the long term that's what works. For example, we did some open source work on GitHub. And the developers didn't have to assign the copyright, which even the GNU Foundation, they make you assign the copyright, because if you have a respected foundation that may need to change the license or something, maybe it's better that the OS is owned by one entity. But what we did is, instead of a copyright assignment, we had a software, I don't remember if Mozilla who did this. It was like, you allow me to use your work in this project, no? So it was like a release. It was not ownership. Yeah. So there's different ways of agreements that, because if you contribute to a project and then it's not clear what the project can continue doing if you disappear or whatever, that's not good for anyone. It's paralyzing. Yeah. That's why sometimes you saw in like the VLC media player, it was pulled from the App Store because it was incompatible with the iTunes rules. And it was impossible to track down all developers. It was a big mess. So I think an agreement needs to be in place. But it has to be fair and respectful, and I hope that we can deliver to that. These are things I believe in. I cannot say more than a personal opinion on this. But.
No, okay. Amiga Inc. had a plan of going cross-platform with Amiga DE product as a VM. What plans still exist, and does the invention of WebAssembly in the browser influence this?
Well, Amiga DE, based on the Tau work, and we had one of our colleagues at our office in Udine was working a lot with those people. So I think I can mention it was Rudy who was working with Amiga at the time around 2000. We were very involved, so with these technologies. Java was the cool thing. Amiga DE seemed to be. I don't know if having to think about running anywhere and then, but also testing anywhere. That's the truth sometimes of these. Of course, we are techies. We are aware of these things. Like WebAssembly convinced even the Chrome people to abandon some NaCl and other technologies that already had been used to run even emulation, Amiga emulation. Our Amiga emulation was used as a test case even by then for the browser code. It also ties with the topic of will you put it in the cloud?
Yes.
So now the streaming, we have a partner who puts emulation, and then you have like a remote access to it. So we could even do like for tinkering, for experimenting what is an Amiga, but you could also just as easily, after all, it's one of 5-6 floppy disks at most, run it locally. So I would be careful not to do too many things. And decide what is the identity, maybe not of one Amiga, but of 3. What is classic? What is preservation? What is the future of classic? What is the future of whatever other branches? Maybe there can be an experimental branch, like an Amiga research operating system where you experiment, and one which has a test framework that needs to pass in every nightly build. It needs to pass the compatibility tests. And actually we are doing now to make it buildable again in our version with emulation. We have virtual machines for automated testing of ROMs and these things.
Okay.
So we are combining our the Amiga Forever as an end user product, also as a development tool.
Okay, that's interesting.
Okay, so there were many frameworks. We had Intelligent Common Point, we had Flash, we had and they specific has its merits too. Not just universal.
Okay, so next one. Will there ever be a bridge technology that allows accelerated 68K machines to run VM code along with next generation Amiga 1 series platforms?
Well, as a fancy thing, we had this. We had Mandelbrot running on a x86 sidecar on an Amiga 1000. So where the x86 was offloading some of the... We had, you remember, our Franken Amiga machines had a PowerPC and 68K running at the same time. Now when you boot into like OS4, you switch off the 68K as the first thing. But we had, before there was an Amiga, a native OS for the PowerPC, we had the CPU used just as a fancy accelerator. Just now for AI, you use GPUs. So
it's nothing new.
Bridge technology, and you told me, other things too. So I would say why not, but also why yes.
It has to be fun. It has to be worth the effort.
Maybe let's talk about multiple cores. One core more power hungry, one is better for sleep, and balance those rather than having so many different technologies.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these questions are like big subjects in their own. Right. I think we moved. So the next question is, will Amiga OS 3.1 be open sourced and under what license?
Okay, I think you can also read the next one, and then we can aggregate it with the previous
very good point. So does Cloenta have the ability to open source Amiga OS? If so, does he not open... If so, why does he not open it up? Sorry,
it's speculative. It's okay. So as I said, it's not going to be Cloanto. It would be the new entity, and only after the court case clarifies certain things. So this needs to be resolved before we can even discuss it. But open source and under what license is part of the discussion. I said I think some rules, there needs to be an agreement when you make contributions, otherwise the project is crippled, it's not healthy in the long term. And if it's fair and respectful, I see no problem. We have many successful projects doing that. For example, we released some works on the GPL2, MPL2, a dual license.
Yeah.
Personally, I wouldn't release things on a pure GPL3. I don't like too much. But a dual GPL2, MPL2, that was an example of something we did. I cannot say this will be the one. Maybe
no.
Maybe it will be a custom license.
I think the key thing is you're keen to do it.
Yes, some license, yes, and we have some licensing experts. You also have to consider that there's an active commercial work also.
Yes.
So there's a research side, but I think one doesn't need to hurt the other one. I think it's win-win.
Yeah, good. I think that's a fundamental one, actually, to be honest. But anyway, okay, next question. How are you going to make sure that, to the best of your ability, Jen Schofield or any other important people do not leave the Amiga Classic hardware scene?
Well, he means Jens Schoenfeld.
Sorry.
No, well, I still consider Jens a friend. We did many things together, and I think of him with sympathy. Some people in general were, I think, dragged into a situation where they were led to believe some things, or they see no outcome because they thought they were put in a corner in which I did not want to put anyone. I think they were put by other people. So I believe in reconciliation and in being the new Amiga entity will hold no grudges. We said it will work at fair terms with anyone, and sometimes at symbolic terms, just with ensuring quality control, for example, which is a requirement for trademarks. But people have always left. I mean, my best, most skilled Amiga friends left in the early 90s, and I thought they were smart, and I was stupid because I was sticking to the Amiga.
Yeah.
So people always left. It's not that you can prevent somebody from leaving if they want to leave. If this case is really catastrophic or whatever, maybe it would be a relief. At last I could focus on some other things.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I still have this Amiga light, the hope and the belief in the beauty and the friends that it can go on. So without lawyers and just techies believing in uncompromising creativity, friendship, and meeting like you do. Other people visit, come, I go somewhere, we spend a few days together, and that's Amiga too.
Yeah. One little thing I will say on that is that I've known Jens a little way back, and he's created some fantastic products, which I love. However, there are lots of people creating great products, and you've only got to look at the accelerators. I'm a fan of the AC500, but there is so much being developed by so many people. So if Jens did, which I hope he doesn't, but if he did leave the community, there's lots of people doing products in his place, similar products. So, as you said, I would rather he stayed, and I hope he stays.
I think hope is a good word. You have to give hope.
Yeah.
Like in the economic situation in many countries now, even Italy is a good example. Young people have no hope.
Yeah.
So there must be hope. There must be beauty. There must be hope. And you can leave, but leaving is one thing. But leaving and blaming others, it's not so nice. No. Or threatening to leave as some sort of a power game, is a different matter. So I don't play these games. Blackmails, I prefer.
I have to be honest, and I'll say this: if you're going to leave, then it's a case of I left the Amiga community many years ago. If you're going to leave, you leave. I mean, you've maybe explained why you've left, but I don't understand this. I'm going to leave in the future. I don't get it. But anyway, so I hope he doesn't, because he's done some amazing work. Right, let's move on to the next one. Okay. Okay?
Yes.
Right, so are there some plans to bring back updated RKM manuals in some form? They're a reasonably inexpensive print-on-demand service today, or maybe as ebooks or PDFs. So I actually have the full set. I'm actually quite proud of that. But
I haven't done.
Yeah, I love the fact I've done.
So there's some contracts which are part of the Commodore files. I haven't looked at them yet. So we actually reserved a batch of 1,000 ISBN codes already
Okay.
some time ago. One of the works that Rudy, for example, did around 2000 when he was staying with us.
Who's Rudy?
Rudy Querito.
Oh,
He's
okay.
now, well, he changed a few exciting companies, and I won't speak for him what he does now, but he was doing, I think it was a LaTeX. There are scans, of course, of the documents, and somewhere there must be also sources. Some already have been edited. We need to find a good file format, editable, to be able to convert to ebook and PDF and whatever. And yes, that's high on the list. Like having tablet-based or emulation assisted educational framework, it has to have the books, I think.
Yeah.
So the 8-bit, the basic book, the machine language, and the ROM disassembly maybe, and yes, I believe in that, but I cannot promise on the timeline.
No. That's fine. Okay. Okay. So the question is, I have and love my Amiga 1X1000 that runs Amiga OS 4.1 FE now, and have long dreamed of an Amiga OS 4.2. Can you please tell us, NG Amiga users, how Claranto owning the Amiga IP will affect the future updates to OS?
Whenever there is a change, that's important. Whenever there is a change of ownership, you must respect the old agreements. So it's not Claranto, it's the new acquisition entity. The new acquisition entity respects the settlement agreement. So if you have questions about OS4, you ask them to Hyperion. Hyperion is a valued partner in this. They've done a job so far in porting to new hardware. Talk to them. I would refer them to them, yes. So Claranto, of course, should for any reason, if an entity disappears, even I can disappear. I have contingency plans. Our lawyers, if something happens to me, there are plans. Now we're in the middle of a situation which I hope will be resolved. Once it's completely resolved, we can move more even with these plans. But of course, we can't step in if for some reason the settlement agreement disappears. We can create a clearer one together with the other party, or we can do something because some rights would revert to maybe the Amiga entities, but that's a maybe, it's a personal opinion, and yes, we can guarantee some sort of continuity, but right now, ask Hyperion.
Yeah, okay. Let me just turn that over before we do anything. Right. Pause here, Steve, don't forget.
Don't pause, now is the interesting part.
I'll be sitting there for 5 minutes while I'm
So, Steve has...
This is getting cut, so...
Steve visited with great personal sacrifice. A wife and a baby at home. I am at home.
I'm going to cut.
And also, he was at risk of, he's a bad cold and at risk of not coming again. But
chest infection, not cold.
He's not. Maybe you have pneumonia. And
all the God, no, nothing like that, no.
Right. So I mean, continue, yeah.
Right.
The new Amiga entity wants to make possible more, not less. So that's the essence.
Right. So continuing, Steve. Maybe
this should be, how do you call it, after the end of the titles, no?
My idea, I might cut these and put these in the end, yeah.
The bonus. We should do a Blu-ray. Actually, I have my little 3D camera there. Maybe.
Right, we've got to get on with this, right? How do we do it?
We have flags,
yeah. Alright, so let's start this again. Okay.
All again?
No. Right. The next question is, why is Claranto Corporation and CA Acquisition Corporation organized under the laws of the state of Nevada?
Because in '98, when we set up a business in the US, because for some things like working with Fortune 50s and other large businesses, you cannot work as an Italian entity. You could maybe for cars or for fashion, but not for software. And people from Israel and from many other countries, not just Italy, have seen this. So you need to have a US presence. I happen to be in Nevada. And so our accountant is there, there's servers there, and I have a local connection. As I said, I'm a member of the local Commodore Computer Club. And I usually, when I'm there, I see like my sister in Palo Alto. I travel to see the accountant and other people in Las Vegas, and that's why Nevada.
So that's a good reason.
Yes.
It's no conspiracy. Right, next question. I also updated my classic Amigas with the recently released OS 3.14 and physical ROMs from Hyperion, and again wonder how Cloenta owning the IP rights moving forward will affect OS 3.14 and future updates moving forward.
Yes. Well, as I said, we want to make more possible, not less. I think it was an example of great work that can be done.
Yeah.
Just the legal situation was such that I would not have released it while there were doubts about what and how you can do this. I think you could speculate that it was done with a bad timing, more or less on purpose, as a desperate move or not. I don't know. That's things that came out in the questions. But
okay. Next question. I'd like to know what Michael thinks about the vampire and the growth in the 68 community in a post-power PC age.
Well, it's a bit early to talk about the demise of the Power PC, but again, FPGAs and emerging new technology, just like we mentioned ARM and RISC-V and
I mean, full disclosure, I'm a big fan of Vampire, and yes. I think the amazing things being done with FPGA.
Luckily, it doesn't fragment, so you could create a code base for 68K that.
Yeah. No, I think no. Okay, I think that's anyway. People know I'm a fan. So, oh god, this is a big question, isn't it? Right. So, next one is: now that you own all the IP, will you be looking to create a rebirth machine range, including entry-level 500, 1200 equivalent? And if yes, would you consider the classic microcomputer form factor, keyboard and computer in one? Would you be looking to work with existing hardware manufacturers, Aeon, Apollo, etc., or would you try to do it in-house?
It's very speculative. You know, I too wish we had new Amigas. When I enter a room with the phosphor screens and the actual hardware, and I remember the sound, the click, it lights up emotions. So of course, it's too speculative. You must remember, I mentioned the word bonsai. I think we must do nice things that we can do. Sure, the last part of the questions is work with existing hardware manufacturers. Of course, I think Eon, working with Trevor and Matthew, they're valuable partners. I am confident they could help, but many others too. So yes, I think there can be a rebirth, if you want to call it like that, but it's speculative, and I will put it after the court case question. Sure. So we'll meet again and see. So
just as a side note, I mean, my masses of people like the single keyboard computer. I've always liked the big box Amigas. So there's two types.
Well, we have different emotions attached to our.
Exactly.
Yeah, I always had, after the 1000.
1000 to me.
I had a 2000 and then a 3000. My 3000, it was powered on like for 10 years. I had a prototype, and the SCSI broke, the serial chip broke at some point, but I replaced him. I put a SCSI board, an expansion, memory expansion.
Yeah.
I never owned actually we had, but a colleague of mine, we had two A4000s, and but it wasn't my machine. Yeah. For some reason I stuck to the 3000.
People probably seen the video. I have a video toaster which I could never have in Europe, and I have a 3000 with a video toaster and all NTSC monitors. I just adore it. It's probably a reason for I did certain things. Okay, so which one? Okay, right. So I'm planning on buying Workbench 3.1.4 and its Kickstarter ROMs, but who actually owns both? Who should I buy it from? If Hyperion is selling them, does he get a commission, or do the company get a commission?
Again, it's a difficult topic. it's part of the things we wanted to clarify. Can you name me one feature that 3.1.4 has that wasn't included in previous patches? I mean, like large hard disk support and all these things, they already were part of Amiga Inc. owned code, no? Of course, it was all recompiled.
Yeah.
I know they fixed some minor bugs, but can you mention any of them?
Well, the only one we mentioned,
Deep Paint.
No, because I always had this problem when I ran, and I've run the emulators for a while, and I've always demoed, but I've always wanted to be able to demo DPaint 5, but for some reason on the emulation, and on all of the emulators, my DPaint 4 and 5 would always crash. But when I put it on the new 3.14, the first thing I tried, I thought, I'll see if it worked, and it worked fine. Yeah. So there must have been some work. They've done some nice little.
I don't know because it runs. We worked with Electronic Arts with Lee Taran on the tablet sensitivity and these aspects, and because of this, I know that Deep Paint works in Amiga Forever.
Yeah,
and that's with the normal ROMs. 3.1 3X. So maybe you just recreated something from scratch and it worked.
I think, to be honest, I think mine was probably because I was running an RTG trying to launch from there and it was getting confused. So it's probably something. It's not a big.
So so who owns both? It's a big mess. So you have developers who contributed code. I don't know what they signed, but
based on existing code.
So sorry,
based on existing code.
So it's really a mess.
Yes, it needs resolving.
Yeah, it needs.
So
we had our undisputed 3X for more than 10 years now, and I think it's a stable, surgically modified ROM which was not recompiled, which also introduces compatibility issues. Sure, we had our own share of issues, like in one version which didn't last long, there was a problem with booting from certain floppy drives. Floppy drives are a complex topic, but this was fixed. So I think by surgically inserting patches that were already done for Amiga International, Amiga Inc., and later with too, I think we achieved a good compromise of compatibility and still having the same large disk support and other features that are now being praised as if they were something new.
I just one more point. When UE went to version 4, 4.1, the reliability the stability from my experience went through the roof. It was way better. So it maybe I haven't actually tried it with that on there, but I noticed WinUAE 4 was just. I really did make it stability wise.
Priorities are not always the same. Sometimes we lose speed on some, or we lose something on older systems.
Yeah.
By introducing new things, you introduce bugs. So we are a bit more conservative for introducing new code in Amiga Forever. Also with Tony, there's a great relationship, and I would really thank Tony again, because we are in almost daily, definitely weekly contact, and there's been a great collaboration.
Yeah.
And but of course, tinkering, it's just like having an experimental branch and a stable one. In Amiga Forever, maybe the priorities are not as having so many options, but there's a depth in some options which you don't find in the other. So
yeah. Okay, I think we've got that. So, right, so the next one.
Oh, yes, that was David Murray.
Yeah. So the next question, which I was interested in this one, what happened with the 8-bit guy's request for licensing?
I'm here admitting my shortcomings in the TR side, in communicating, but we are here also because we're working on that. So I think I have his response now, because I've asked him after he did the show.
Yeah.
So David has a great show on YouTube with a lot of followers.
Yeah.
He also sells products, and he likes to present things in a way in a catchy way, which maybe inflames or creates passion and so on. So I think he said he tried to use the contact form a dozen times or so, make that one. He received a first communication which he didn't like, but then we followed up later. I explained to him things, he explained to me things. We had a phone call, I believe, in any case, he didn't have, he never called me. So he says, after I asked him, why do you say these things? He admitted it's possible I was exaggerating some. So he didn't send a dozen emails or several phone calls, and there was no refusal to answer. So he confused people. He called somebody else, and he said, I'm busy in like 100 different projects, okay? But that doesn't justify what you say in public. It's possible I was exaggerating some. I didn't really keep track of how many times, and I reached out to this other person who did this, and he said he licensed from you, and so he asked him, but I'm sorry, I never heard from that. So, but I think there was some exaggeration, some theatrical exaggeration, which is a lot. It happens a lot nowadays.
Yes. Oh God.
And being more from the technical side, I'm more of an introvert. I'm more even the bad salesman engineer who tells you the negative before the positive. I prefer to license twice than once, just to be sure. So, well, he's better than me in sales. Maybe David Murray could help us.
I'm going to say that I have seen that email from David as well, and I've read it. I'm looking at the wrong lens here. I have actually seen the response, and I think it's just one of those things where it was inflamed, it was exaggerated,
and then it went beyond.
And then it gets.
I am not even doubting his intentions. He just was speaking freely. His memory, as he says, he does 100 different projects. I was late in my first response. I said something that wasn't the reply he wanted to hear. But then we clarified after his video.
So I think we've done that. But right, let's go on to the next one. Will we see Amiga as a cloud-based OS and possible to install as a virtual machine?
Well, it's two different questions. Virtual machine,
we already have.
So Amiga Forever, or that's a virtual machine.
See, some people see emulator. They don't understand that an emulator it's pretty much a virtual machine. It's not quite.
Look at our the user interface elements are very similar to Hyper-V. Even the terminology we use now meets some expectations which Microsoft and others brought in. Like snapshot is the way you call taking a save state now.
Yeah,
it's not a screen snapshot, and so on. So the controls are the same: save, stop, play.
Yeah.
Cloud-based OS, well, you can already do, even if you don't notice, there's emulation based in the cloud, and you can do that already now with a partner.
Yeah.
And but don't do too many things again. Keep focus. It could be a fancy way to try something new.
Yeah.
You've never seen an Amiga, you can try it, but it could be script based or WebAssembly based or whatever. So will we see? I think we will. We will see many things, but
there's always the fear of dilution. You do so many different things, you dilute the focus. So and I think focusing is
the focus is restoring the things I said, making possible new things in the current branches, and then expanding. But first, we have to fix the foundation, bring back the beauty and order.
Yeah, because people think once this is fixed, they think everything will happen just like that. It won't. Okay, let's move to the next one. In event of open source in Amiga OS 3.1, have you considered using source code license compatible with AROS source code license? I didn't write that one.
To be honest, I haven't checked the legal implications of the AROS license. I don't know about code ownership there. I was in touch with Aaron Digula from day one. I know he's left now. Can we say that?
Oh, a long time ago,
So
he may still be looking, but
I would love to be more involved with this. We sponsored some projects in AROS. We even in every Amiga Forever we try to have a fresh build, so you can even try AROS out of the box.
Yes.
And I think just like AROS has done great things. You mentioned the 3D and other aspects.
Yeah.
And they are also used outside. Jan is using some in AmiKit. Then you have OS4. And
the fonts,
I think
the font
that could be. If we had an official family, there could be an important role and recognition for some of that. So,
good.
But maybe there should be a freedom for that experimental branch, research branch we mentioned.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Okay. I'm curious on time. I'm done. Okay. I have to fly home some
We
point.
have another 48 minutes left if you're sleeping. So we have to be.
Okay. Sure. So, what are all the Amiga related IPs that you own or the company owns, and what rights does that give you?
That's two questions. IP is one thing, and rights means also respecting previous agreements. Of course, maybe the agreement says you can terminate it or expires, or sometimes it happens, but still you have to respect the old also before.
Yeah.
So Cloanto already owned copyrights, all copyrights owned by Commodore Amiga, and we made these assignments in different dates, and they were recorded with the US Copyright Office for the sake of transparency. So initially in 97 we had an agreement for all the patents, trademarks, and copyrights. The patents expired, and then the copyrights we first acquired 50% and then 100% up to 93, and then from 94 onwards in a different agreement. And this already was owned by Cloanto. So the CA acquisition entity may have some residual interest in copyrights where it wasn't, maybe like Amiga DE was not, if there's any work owned by Amiga Inc., for example, or even maybe some contributions that went into OS4, if they're not owned under the settlement agreement, should they revert or for any reason, maybe the Amiga entity may own some, but this is speculative. So it owns, on the copyright front, everything that Cloanto didn't already own, which is, in my opinion, not really much. So that's why I say once the things are sorted out, I would like to see Cloanto contribute in the same entity, so there will be one Amiga entity.
Yeah.
Trademarks, it owns a lot, and it has been not dormant but put to active use over the years. Cloanto, Hyperion, Eon, Amiga Kit, all these companies produced products and sold products using the Amiga marks, recognizing the Amiga Inc. So, what rights does it give him? Before I answer in detail, I'm not a lawyer, but we need to see the court case resolved. As I said, I think it gives us the right to at least allow people to do what is done now, and we want to allow the whole ecosystem to do more.
Okay.
So the cottage industry, as you call it, or whatever. So yeah, we want to be an empowering and enabling entity, not some blocking.
Okay.
How do third-party companies get in touch about licensing a new product design to be in line with IP rights? Well, mike@amiga.com is my email address. But keep in mind that some things cannot be answered without legal consultation. And if you need legal advice, I'm not the one who can give you legal advice. Don't believe anybody other than your lawyer. Of course, you have to listen to all voices, but you may need a lawyer, and you have to wait patiently also for the court case to be resolved, because there are some uncertainties, which is a reason why I too wait for that.
Okay. So now this
it
is
was
similar.
They're all group.
They're all pretty much
we
the
answered
same.
them, I think.
Yeah, yes. We won't worry about that one. Are you going to reach out to hardware developers, and what support will you be offering?
I think schematics, code, guidelines, we mentioned that.
Yeah.
If we are able to restore some publications in an official way that can be maintained, but hardware developers should be able and proud to be able also to be compatible, which means contributing drivers or getting low-level API source code access. And there should be clarity: what names can you use without a license, what can you use with a license. So the rules, when they are the same for everyone, I think there's respect and clarity and confidence. Not just some that, you made 50 boards and you put them on eBay and the other reseller pulls them because he's a competitor, and these things, they should not happen. This is very ugly, and unfortunately we see that a lot now.
Okay. Have you any plans to develop in-house software for classic accelerated Amigas?
I think dedicated to accelerate. Well, you mean system software, application software?
I don't know what the question is aiming at personally.
Speculative, broad, and in
It is-
part,
it's-
it's related to the
Yeah.
topic of, for the system side, we need to see.
Yeah, I think you're going to have enough on your plate,
yeah.
to be fair. So I would be surprised if you said
Also, we answered some of that already.
Yeah. Okay. As the technology world around us is increasingly becoming touchscreen only, I would like to. This is the questioner. I would like to know if your plans for either the classic Amiga OS or next generation include plans for ditching traditional mice and keyboards, or if they will still be supported.
This ditching. I couldn't believe it. It seemed that Microsoft a few years ago was embracing the tablet crowd and trend, which was short-lasting for productivity, I think. And really, they ditched it. So I can understand the question, but don't expect me to ditch anything that I love.
No, I don't.
So I believe in a keyboard and a precision mouse like you have here as human enhancing tools, precision tools that allow us to do more. And of course, I would like to be able to offer user interface for game publishers for to render their joystick inputs in a touch screen. Now Microsoft also is releasing some guidelines. We work with their Xbox user input team on some of that. But ditching keyboard and mouse, no.
Yeah, in my opinion, this would be the worst thing to ever happen. I can't even imagine it happening. But the operating system does need. I mean, we had. I remember back in the late 80s, we had touch screens, and we were touching screens.
But we do the opposite.
Yeah.
We enable when you don't have one, not by choice from us, but because maybe you don't have it. Let's say you have one of those 2-in-1 notebooks. In Amiga Forever, we spent months of work to do a beautiful virtual keyboard. Now, in the recent early access versions, you can snap it and it becomes one. And we have passed through Unicode enabled. So let's say you have a Japanese in the emulation. You can paste clipboard and type and all these things in a transparent way that no emulator has ever done with it. Because for us, some technical things or usability things are important, and we give them time. So no, don't worry. No ditching of keyboard mouse, but
I'll be
again,
screaming
do more,
very
not
loud
less.
because it's something that I think is very important, right? What are your thoughts on Amiga OS on different CPUs? And I didn't write that one.
Yeah, again, when you are so a good example of a company jumping from one CPU to the other with success is Apple. No, they changed from 68K to PowerPC to x86. Now they say maybe next year it will be ARM. Who knows?
2-3 years.
I have no doubt that if they do it, they will be successful. But whether we can afford to jump to so many platforms, and of course it's not only the choice of the Amiga people, because if IBM or others release a low budget PowerPC CPU that everyone can again use and enjoy the single core power that Amiga OS uses so well, ARM is still a bit behind there, on a single thread, no? Okay. That's what we need without modifying the OS right now. But so whether we can jump as successfully as Apple is one question. Whether we can become a universal OS, Java-like, that runs on 4 or 5 systems, will it be more or less successful? Will it dilute the identity? This has to be a debate.
Yes.
So also based on outside decisions from the technology, the CPU makers, to see what they bring to market.
I obviously have opinions as well, but I'm not going to go into that here. Okay, do you plan on leveraging hardware companies, Aeon, A-Cube, etc., to move away from PowerPC to a more affordable hardware CPU platform? Do you plan on making Amiga OS 4X, hardware agnostic, or keeping it limited to one family of CPUs?
Well, first, OS 4 is Hyperion, so we respect that, of course. And these CPUs are actually slightly different in enough way, and the chipsets that they require some adaptations. I know even x86 has the same issue. So, like our old Cake Slide code, the Linux-based environment boots on some systems, but not on some newer ones. So it's good when you have control of the hardware. Like Apple, again, Apple shows you that it's good to have that control.
As long as you got control.
Even on the mobile, their latest OS versions run on a larger share of devices than Android because they have this control. So if a good company like Google has the same problem, let's be careful and see that you can do more with less sometimes. So hardware agnostic, I don't think that is possible, because that means perfectly support an open-ended number of hardware architectures is simply not possible. So, as I said, when a question like that came in last week, I referred them to Hyperion.
Yeah.
So, would you be forming an Amiga OS foundation to support development in the same veins as the Apache Mozilla and various BSD foundations? Yes. So, we have family members in the US who worked in some foundations. I know it's bureaucracy, but we're not afraid of bureaucracy. So when you're somewhat familiar with Italian tax and legal requirements and so on, I think you're not scared by a non-profit. And I think it should be a US non-profit. Commodore Amiga was a US company, and I would like the IP to stay in the US. And also our US experience is there, and we have people there. So
okay. Yeah. So, next question. Will there be new 3X iOS versions in the future? And how will the lawsuit affect that? I assume it means you're the Clemento's 3X.
Well, yes, there's a beta version already. It has been since Amiga 34. I had a version there. Again, Jeff Weeks, great support, and other people who greatly contributed for 68 or 60. So we have an 060 board or two to test, but the thing is, we became less aggressive seeking the clarifications of the court case, whereas the other side, maybe because it has in-house lawyers, they gambled a bit more. I don't know. So the question contains the answer. How will the lawsuit affect that? The lawsuit will affect that. So yeah, I think there will be. We have had more than 10 years of 3X, and there will be more.
Okay.
But what exactly? Yeah,
you can't say at the moment, can you?
Yes, because there is this code created by smart people who, however, are entangled into other contracts.
Cool.
So they would like to contribute, but apparently they can't. So that's
right. So let's move on because of time.
Yeah.
So as a Mac Linux user, I really only use the one files for my current version of Amiga Forever. We'll soon start working on a Mac version. We'll soon start working on a Mac version of Amiga Forever.
Can we skip this question? This is a difficult question.
Right, it seems to have been on Clemento's website for a year. There you go. So well,
not for a year, for more.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well,
for a very long time.
Yeah,
yes.
okay. Oh, okay. So basically,
no, he's right. This is embarrassing. This shows you that you have to prioritize, and not everything is possible with the same quality, and so I am still hopeful that there will be a Mac OS, proper good Mac OS versions of Amiga Forever.
Yeah.
So just like I would love to see a good Raspberry Pi or Chromebook, or Pixel as they call them now.
Yeah.
So.
But I think there's sometimes a case of maybe reaching a bit too far. And you're better off concentrating on the ones that you've got.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe let partners do.
Yeah.
So here are the similar questions. Raspberry Pi and other single board systems. Will there be an Amiga Mini, MUB, Amiga X? So Amiga X, first of all, this is a speculative name.
We have to stop just a second. Sorry, oh, God's sake. Right, we start that one again.
We don't have that much.
We do. Oh, okay, so we're not going to be. We'll rattle through these a bit. What is time now? Yeah, okay. How long is it to the airport? We'll start.
40 minutes.
Okay. So these are basically two of them, right? Okay, so I'll read both of them.
Yeah.
All right, start again. I'm going to join two questions together here. So one of them is, will you encourage support of Raspberry Pi and other single board computers? And the second question is, will there be an Amiga Mini, or would they be willing to work with EmuB for the furtherance of their Amiga X project?
Also join the next question.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. No. Okay. Will the new entity, Cliento or whatever, support or get better involved in the Amiga X project?
First of all, it's one of those things where it's risky to announce a project to the public using some names and then ask permission.
Yes.
So right now there's no way somebody could use the Amiga name for a project like this. When Thomas Voss reached out to me, and we didn't yet have the new. Yes.
Which Thomas? Is Thomas from the Amiga?
EmuB.
Okay. Yeah. I just want to get it clear. I didn't know
so he told me he knows he cannot use the Amiga trademark on a product without a license. He told me this, so he doesn't even need to be educated about this. We just like we got the coverage in the 90s for some things. So. But it seems that some parts of the community have embraced it as if it was something that existed.
Yeah.
So because we all want hope, hope is something that you attach to Hyperion or to the new owners or to whoever represents the ability to create something new, because we all want to believe. And I would like the new entity to be the official carrier of a clean and respected way of focusing that hope.
Yeah.
So yes, just like you work with some Linux-based systems, of course the Raspberry Pi.
I think the message here is, if you want to use any of the trademarks, ask before you announce.
Not just trademarks, any type of IP in general.
Yes.
The work of somebody else. Now, of course, fair use is one thing, but ripping off. So,
okay,
it's a difficult topic.
Yeah. So next question. I recently read that Commodore Italy has acquired global rights for Commodore trademarks. Do you have any thoughts or plans to partner with them for products?
I don't know. I am not aware of Commodore Italy. I know that they put these mailbox companies in London. No, there were two identical companies at the Wenlock Drive address. Do you?
No, I've not even heard of them.
Well, they didn't file the yearly things. They were dissolved, and both of them, as far as I know. So I am suspicious if somebody creates a company called Commodore Business Machines to be exactly the same name. Again, they play with hopes. They want to be official. Maybe somebody edits Wikipedia and says, "Oh, they are the official successor," but that's, I think, grabbing in the worst form. And I think if you are the successor because you acquired the IP, it's one thing. But just because, would you form a company and call it whatever, Eon? But so that is exactly the same.
It would make no sense to me as well.
Would you form a company and call it Commodore Business Machines?
No.
So I think that answers the question. So
as a more personal thing, I wouldn't set one up.
We witnessed these attempts more than once. Again, I do, and then I see the reaction, and sometimes the reaction is some gullible or want to believe journalists. Now you have clicks. For clicks, you do anything, and again, it's that distorted echo chamber of news, fake news. Once
if it becomes enough information about it, people start to believe maybe it's
true. I think our history speaks for it. We plan and we license and we work before we announce, and we release when we do.
I agree with you. Okay, are there any current plans for new Amiga computers or licensing third parties to brand approved hardware as Amiga? I think we kind of covered that. We've kind of covered that. Can you confirm that Cliento now owns the Amiga name and logo, the one on the A500, etc.? Yeah, we knew what it was. And if so, are you willing to license it out to third-party products?
So we agreed that the ownership would be the new Amiga entity. No? Of course, Cliento, just like the Amiga companies, gave it the right to use Amiga Forever and Workbench for some things. Is currently coexisting with the acquisition entity, so there are existing agreements in place which the lawyers have set up just to explain what one of these companies can do on the other. So it's, generally speaking, it's the new acquisition entity, not Cloanto, that owns the Amiga name and logo.
Okay.
No? Yes, there's a willingness to license without harming other partners. So there may be existing agreements. Sometimes you cannot do something just because there's already an agreement in place. And there must be quality control whenever there's a trademark license. And there will be simple rules, just like now Microsoft tells you can use this mark or this you cannot use unless you have a license. So don't worry about doing this as long as the rules are clear. So yes, but would you license it for underwear and socks? Maybe not. Maybe so. Quality control also means keeping. The next interview I want to do with Amiga socks.
I just instantly came up with some underwear, but anyway.
No, because no, but when Petro, I consider myself a friend of Petro, and I loved it when he came out with the socks. I think he did a lot of gadgets and so. But yes, merchandising in a trivial unrelated, like Commodore did it for user groups, good. But then when people start exploiting this as a weakness, it means maybe you did something where the brand shouldn't have been used. No.
My opinion on the whole little bits and pieces is you need the computers before you start doing that.
Yes,
you need
we need clarity, beauty, computers.
Yeah.
And then Amiga Cola.
We don't need Amiga mugs.
We need Amiga Cola to work, or not?
We need
Amiga Cola, like Coke.
Oh God, no. I'm not really into all these little. I mean, I'm not really into all these little. I must have this. I've got to have my Amiga hat. Anyway,
hey, so we're at the end.
We are. Is that? Are we? No, there's no.
Well, you added one. 42 was a beautiful number, but now it's 43.
No, that's okay. So we're on this one now. So the work that Olaf Bot and Thomas on 3.1.4. Yes, Victor. Sorry. Is awesome. The cleanest and best update to 3.1 so far. I didn't write this again. How do you think Cloanto can support and contribute to OS3 development from now on? With that in the market, I assume that's what you mean.
Even awesome things, I think, shouldn't be released if there's a context that says, be careful right now because there's a court case. So I don't know if of course the work is great. Releasing it is maybe a daring action by somebody else, not necessarily the same people who released it, or maybe. So I warned Olaf. I told him, look, I am the Amiga parties, and I side with that interpretation. Let's say cautious is not even the word. They don't think that it can be done. That's what I told him, and maybe it was too late. Maybe he couldn't change it anymore. I don't know, but let's wait for the court case.
All this stuff has to be resolved anyway.
I have a good relationship with Olaf, and he considered the same, and he tells other people the same. We both say the same for almost 30 years now. I was using his term software. We were in touch later. He helped with the transition with the source code and everything with the new Amiga entity. But also we had a meeting at Amiga 30 about 68K. So that was 2015, before the current squabbles, which I think maybe are also the result of this meeting. Olaf and Markus wanted to talk about 68K evolution. And we had this meeting at Amiga 30 in Neuss. 30, not 32, not 34. And it required me to clarify some things with legal, with Amiga Inc. and so on. I always kept Olaf informed, and I assumed that he would inform the others. But maybe I'm too slow in this. Maybe I'm not legally bold enough to just try and see if somebody dares to sue you or react or whatever. But well, it went another way. I think they did not only a beautiful work, but also apparently so in the spirit of a generous act to, and it's beautiful, but it's ugly how it was abused. Apparently, I hear now it's worth hundreds of thousands. Something done for free is worth hundreds of thousands in intangible assets, no? And yes. So
okay, right. So we're on the. I think we're pretty much on the last one. And this is a long one. So right, so the Amiga logo has been revised on numerous occasions. The logos associated with the operating systems and the hardware include, among others, the original variant written in italic times, created by Commodore, and one more stylized variant written in a modified Bondomi typeface created by Amiga Technologies. Under Claranto management, which one do you plan to use up ahead and why? What graphical identity do you feel properly represents the Amiga in 2019? Sorry, that was a bit of
it's good because we conclude with the topic of diversity, which we mentioned at the beginning of this talk. A company with 3 logos. They must have had some problem. Have you ever seen a company with 3 logos? So
not the same time.
We had this official
check mark.
Yeah, Boeing.
Boeing was first, I think, actually. The very original, but it was replaced very quick.
I have the original Boeing. I think Andy Finkel gave me some at CeBIT or some Amiga DevCon from the Amiga the external floppy drive.
Yeah.
So I have some on base.
The original Amiga 1000, I think the first ones that come off, which is put in the museum, I saw with a Boeing ball on it, but then they quickly changed it for the check mark to keep it in line. Keep it in line with 64, I think.
But actually there were Amiga prototypes already with an Amiga.
Yeah.
With a Commodore key rather than the Amiga key, and then so we have the A, and so see the next issue of Amiga Future. We are going to have an ad there, playing with the logos.
Okay,
I think maybe it can be a combination. Maybe it's good to talk about this. Maybe people should contribute some ideas about what it could be.
So there's a lot of because I've had a lot of help from designers recently, and there's a lot of guys out there. So if you've got some ideas, send them to Michael because so it's going to be a melting pot.
So just to start, we have this
your inbox
advertising
is going to be
series. So Amiga Future, the Pixel magazine, and others, they will feature play with logos. So you're anticipated.
Okay.
I mean,
sorry.
It's already in print.
Yeah.
I think they delivered it already. So I believe in strength through diversity. It's not the only diversity we have in this. It's not just the logo. It's even the identity of the company.
Yeah.
So the California startup High Toro Amiga, who had to sell to Commodore, who was able to continue development, and you have 2 teams. Now we celebrate both. As Amiga Forever, we never claimed to be, but now the new entity also embodies with an acquisition.
Yeah.
But we also still celebrate both teams in a respectful way, even if maybe one sold, one bought, one did a deathbed vigil, the other also did a deathbed vigil, and all these things because they saw an end, but an end also was a new beginning, and we are the result of that. So we use the Palatino font in the text of the ad because that's what we saw in some Commodore ads with some simple wording.
Yeah.
And the logos you will see is a play on the existing logos.
Okay. Right. So, do you want to say now we've finished now with the questions? Is there anything you'd like to say? Last ending points.
I like this. Which Trevor is a gift from Trevor. No? Keep calm and carry on.
Yeah.
Here we have Amiga from the Saku team, my friends there, and. I think let's keep the discourse on. It's if I put an end. No, this is a beginning of a lot of meeting. You will see me. I like attending events and talking to people, and we both learn rather than maybe forums, which I think for the dynamics of reward in these social and forum software, they tend to reward some wrong things, and it's very difficult also to moderate the toxic, especially when the environment itself is suffering. So I saw the same now with the baby. It's difficult to get a professional competent opinion, just like they give you the pediatrician or in hospital, which is high quality, in forums, because in forums, some people for whom there are no problems are silent. Then you have the extreme, both ends are very vocal. Some are more introverts, some are more extroverts, some want to be famous, some don't care, and some have more time, some have less. It doesn't, so forums, then they reward some dynamics which are self-celebrating, and
Yes.
they just give back what you already believe in.
Yeah.
So human people deal with that better, and it's not a new problem. We had this problem already with email 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's why I prefer people, even if I am on the shy side and I admit my shortcomings. And I thank you for helping me overcome some of these. No?
Oh, well, I don't know about that, but I think the big thing here is don't judge someone until you actually met them, because this has happened to me so many times in the past. I've been criticised terribly, and then people meet me and say, "Well, you know what I thought," and so I think, meet Michael, go to the shows. Everyone who's met Michael really likes him. Don't always agree necessarily, but I haven't had anyone who's met you said they didn't like you. So, but it's good. Come to the show, come talk to the people there, and get a discussion going, because I think the Facebooks and so on are great tools, and I think they're wonderful for this community. But the amplification of negativity, I think, is a nightmare.
Yeah, and the social media companies are aware of this, and they don't have a solution.
No,
so
of course not. So I think that pretty much concludes it. Yes. Michael, thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. It's been really good.
Yeah, it's been great.
He wouldn't let me pay for anything.
He wants to pay.
I just want to pay buy dinner, and he wouldn't let me pay.
I am poor. I have cash. He has these rich credit cards.
Yeah, these newfangled things. Anyway, I hope you guys think this was worthwhile. I personally do. I do think it's important to hear Michael say. And thanks for everyone who sent the questions in, because there was a lot of them.
Thank you all. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely right, and I really do appreciate that. That's it, and we'll see you soon. Hopefully at the Amiga 34 swag next month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Swag I cannot attend because Pixel Heaven is the same date.
Oh, okay. All right. So anyway, we'll see you soon. Thanks very much. Bye.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Right. So hopefully the video answered your questions. I think Michael's going to be a good steward for the Amiga legacy and the future. And I believe that over time he will deliver on the things he has said. Don't expect this to happen overnight, because, see, the biggest problem at the moment is the legal problem. I'm not going to come down one side or the other, but the bottom line is everybody has to respect the rights of the IP and trademark owners. You can't just play around with that. So you need to sort out this legal situation, needs to be resolved, because I honestly believe, from a business perspective, first of all, that the Amiga can be a really nice, thriving little cottage industry. It will never compete with the big Apple, Microsoft, Linux. We're never going to do that. But we can be a very strong community, and from a business point of view, there can be a nice little cottage industry, lots of people. Instead of literally just as it is at the moment, where they make money to fund their hobby, but they may be able to actually do it professionally. And this is what I hope that will happen. But it can only happen if all the people involved in lawsuits just sit down, resolve it, let's move on, because this is getting stupid. Finally, thanks if you got this far. Hopefully the video was informative, useful. Hopefully you have a bit more of an understanding of Michael. I think most people will see that he's just a normal man. He has a wonderful family and a new child. It's his first child. In fact, his new son is 4 months old and mine's 3 months old. So obviously we have that in common as well, which is quite funny. But yeah, he has, and he, as you saw, he's not made millions. Okay, he does this. It's a passion. And he believes in the progressing, keeping the legacy of the Amiga, but progressing forward into the future. And I hope you'll understand it more and be a little bit more supportive and think before you post inflammatory comments. And you know, if you get to come to some of the shows, as I always say to people, come and talk to people like myself, Michael, and the others. If you're upset with us, come and tell us, and we'll talk about it. 99% of the time we can turn people around and explain maybe they've been misinformed or so on. I've never had someone who had a problem with me that we didn't come away being friends. So just talk to Michael and whoever you're upset with. But apart from that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.
This Amiga 1000, everything we did was on floppy drive. So one disk was the boot disk, one disk was the compiler, one disk was the include and the other files, and one was the source code. So I had 4 drives and everything was compiled and built. Huh? You like it? Yeah, so and I still do. Yeah. But the sound, there was a soft and a click. This is very peculiar to this keyboard, to this Amiga 1000 keyboard. I miss that. Like they all they have their own sounds, like the fans and the floppy drives, which are characteristic. Yeah.